What if I told you that the real heroes rebuilding America's exhausted land are not the flashy chemicals, the expensive miracle products, or the corporate promises printed on fertilizer bags, but humble plants most people walk past without a second glance? What if number 12 can drill life back into compacted ground like a living spear, and number 20 can blanket dead soil so completely that erosion, weeds, and nutrient loss start losing their grip almost immediately? For decades, farmers, gardeners, and landowners were taught to treat soil like an empty factory floor, something you simply pour inputs onto and demand output from. But soil is not a machine. It is a living world, and when that world is damaged, stripped, compacted, poisoned, or starved, the fastest path back is often not more force. It is the right plants. Before we go any further, subscribe to the channel, because this is where we uncover the forgotten foods, plants, and natural systems that modern life keeps overlooking. And trust me, the deeper we go into this list, the more you will realize that some of the most powerful solutions have been here all along, quietly waiting in fields, roadsides, meadows, and cover crop systems, while modern agriculture chased shortcuts. At number 1, lentils, the quiet nitrogen bankers. Lentils do not look dramatic. They are small, modest, almost easy to dismiss. But that is exactly how many of nature's greatest workers operate. In ancient agricultural societies across the Middle East and Mediterranean, lentils were treasured not only as food for people, but also as part of crop systems that helped fields remain productive. Traditional farmers understood something modern industrial farming often ignored. When a plant works with the soil instead of merely taking from it, the whole system changes. Lentils belong to the legume family, and that means they partner with rhizobia bacteria in root nodules to capture atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into forms the soil ecosystem can use. In plain English, they help feed the ground. They add organic matter, support microbial activity, and reduce the need for synthetic nitrogen inputs that often burn through natural balance. Modern society overlooked lentils as soil restorers because they are not glamorous. They do not tower overhead or produce huge biomass like some cover crops, but their value is hidden underground, where real soil resurrection begins. At number 2, Vetiver Grass, the living fortress. If you have never heard of Vetiver Grass, that tells you everything about how disconnected modern culture has become from the ancient intelligence of land stewardship. In parts of Asia and Africa, vetiver has long been used to stabilize slopes, stop erosion, and hold fragile landscapes together. It is not just a grass, it is a wall. Its secret is one of the most extraordinary root systems in the plant world. Vetiver sends roots deep into the soil, often far deeper than common grasses, helping break up compacted layers while anchoring the land against runoff. That root mass creates channels for air, water, and microbial life to move back into soil that had become hard and lifeless. It also traps sediment and reduces nutrient loss during heavy rain. America has millions of acres suffering from erosion, ditch collapse, degraded slopes, and water runoff problems, yet most people still think in terms of concrete and mechanical barriers first. Vetiver reminds us that the smartest engineering was often designed by nature before we ever arrived. At number 3, mung beans, the fast healers. For centuries in South and East Asia, mung beans were valued as a nourishing food and as part of regenerative growing systems because they established quickly and improved tired ground. Traditional growers knew that a fast, living cover was better than leaving land bare and exposed to heat, wind, and rain impact. Mung beans are legumes, which means they also contribute nitrogen fixation. But what makes them especially effective is their speed. They germinate quickly, cover ground efficiently, suppress some weed pressure, and begin feeding the underground ecosystem before degraded soil has more time to deteriorate. Their roots stimulate microbial interactions, and their plant residues contribute organic matter when incorporated or left as mulch. Modern agriculture overlooked mung beans in America, partly because industrial systems prefer large, standardized commodity crops with massive supply chains behind them. But when the goal is healing land rather than squeezing short-term extraction from it, speed, living cover, and nitrogen support become priceless. At number 4, acacia, the desert rebuilder. Ancient communities across Africa, the Middle East and Australia respected acacia not just as a tree but as a survival partner. In harsh climates it provided shade, fodder, wood, gum and most importantly a form of ecological resilience. Certain acacia species are legumes, which means they also contribute nitrogen enrichment through symbiotic bacteria. But their real power goes beyond that. Acacia can thrive where many other plants fail, sending roots into difficult ground, stabilizing fragile landscapes, creating litterfall, and slowly building fertility in places people had nearly given up on. In dead or semi-dead soils, shade alone can be revolutionary. It lowers surface temperatures, reduces evaporation, and creates conditions where microbial life and understory plants can return. Modern society forgot the power of species like acacia because we became obsessed with immediate results. Trees demand patience. But soil restoration is not a trick, it is a relationship. Acacia teaches that dead land often needs structure, shelter, and time before abundance can return. At number 5, purslane, the resilient renegade. Most people have been trained to call purslane a weed, which is often what happens when a plant is useful but does not fit neatly into commercial expectations. Traditional medicine systems from the Mediterranean to Asia valued purslane as food and healing herb, while observant growers noticed that it thrived where soils were stressed, dry or disturbed. Purslane is a succulent with remarkable stress tolerance, and it helps protect exposed soil by creating low spreading cover. That matters because bare soil is dying soil. Bare soil overheats, erodes, crusts over, and loses moisture fast. Purslane's growth helps reduce that exposure. It also contributes biomass and interacts with the rhizosphere, the living zone around roots where microbes, fungi, minerals, and organic compounds negotiate the future of the land. Purslane is rich in protective plant compounds and unusual fatty acids for a green plant, but its deeper lesson is about humility. Modern culture often destroys the very species that volunteer first to begin healing a damaged place. At number 6, soybeans, the industrial giant with a forgotten gift. Soybeans are usually talked about as a commodity, a market, a processed ingredient, a political crop. But before all of that, soybeans were simply a legume with the power to collaborate with the soil. In traditional East Asian agriculture, soy played a central role in food systems and rotational farming because growers understood its fertility benefits. Like other legumes, soybeans support nitrogen fixation through root nodules, helping replenish depleted soils when managed properly. Their residues can add organic matter, and their presence in rotations helps diversify root exudates, which feeds different microbial communities underground. That diversity matters more than most people realize. Dead soil is often biologically monotonous. Bringing life back means bringing variety back. Modern society overlooked the regenerative side of soybeans because industrial farming turned them into extraction machines, often grown in monocultures that defeat much of their restorative potential. But the plant itself is not the villain. Mismanagement is. In the right system, soybeans can still be powerful repair workers. At number 7, marigold, the bright guardian. Ancient gardeners in India, Mesoamerica, and the Mediterranean did not keep marigolds around just because they were beautiful. They noticed what happened when these flowers were planted near crops and disturbed soils. Marigolds, especially certain species, are known for their relationship with soil biology and their role in suppressing some harmful nematodes. Their roots release bioactive compounds that can influence the underground environment in ways that protect more vulnerable plants. On top of that, they attract pollinators and beneficial insects, helping above-ground ecology recover alongside the soil below. Restoration is not just about nutrients, it is about rebuilding an entire living network. Marigolds also add root activity and biomass to spaces that might otherwise sit empty. Modern agriculture often dismissed flowers as ornamental luxuries rather than functional tools. That is a costly mistake. Sometimes the first sign a dead system is waking up is not a lab report. It is the return of colour, insects, and biological conversation. At number 8, barley, the ancient armour. Barley is one of humanity's oldest crops, cultivated by ancient civilizations from Mesopotamia to the highlands of Eurasia. It endured because it was tough, adaptable, and useful in hard conditions. Those same qualities make it valuable for rebuilding dead soil today. Barley establishes quickly, covers the ground, and produces fibrous roots that help hold topsoil in place while improving structure in the upper layers. It is especially valuable where erosion control and cool season cover are needed. Its residues contribute carbon-rich material, and its living roots help keep the underground food web active during periods when soil might otherwise sit exposed and biologically idle. Some modern growers overlook barley because it seems old-fashioned, overshadowed by more specialized cover crop conversations. But sometimes old-fashioned is exactly what a broken landscape needs. Barley does not try to impress. It protects, stabilizes, and buys time for recovery. At number 9, green peas, the cool season restorers. Green peas have nourished civilizations for centuries, from European peasant fields to traditional mixed farming systems in Asia and the Middle East. But beyond feeding people, peas play a crucial role in helping tired ground recover. As legumes, they fix nitrogen, but they also perform well in cool conditions, which makes them valuable in windows when other species might struggle. They help keep roots in the soil, reduce erosion, contribute organic residues, and feed microbes through sugars released into the rhizosphere. That flow of carbon from living roots into soil biology is one of the most underappreciated miracles in agriculture. Soil does not come back to life because we lecture it. It comes back because living roots start paying into the underground economy again. Modern culture forgot that because bags of fertilizer look easier than biological patience. But peas remind us that restoration is often a season-by-season strategy, not a single dramatic event. At number 10, canola, also known as rapeseed, the deep scavenger. Now, here is one that surprises people. Most know canola as an oil crop, not as a soil healer. But in the right system, canola can play a valuable regenerative role. Brassicas like canola produce root systems that help loosen certain soil layers, while also scavenging nutrients that might otherwise leach away. They can capture residual nitrogen, reduce bare ground exposure, and contribute biomass back into the system. Some brassicas are also associated with biofumigant effects, thanks to glucosinolate-related compounds that can influence soil pests and pathogens when residues are managed properly. Ancient farmers may not have used modern chemical language, but they absolutely understood the power of pungent plants. They saw how certain species cleaned, protected, and prepared the land. Modern society tends to overlook canola's restorative role because commodity narratives dominate public perception. When a plant becomes an industry, people stop seeing its ecological personality. And this is a good place to pause for a second, because a lot of people watching are probably wondering where they can actually find these seeds or plants. The truth is, many of them are easier to source than you think through local seed suppliers, regenerative farm networks, native plant nurseries, cover crop distributors, and even regional co-ops. Some are common, some are specialized, and some need to match your climate and soil conditions carefully. That is why it is worth doing a little homework before planting anything at scale. And if you are enjoying this countdown so far, subscribe and keep following along, because the next 10 plants get even more powerful, especially if your land is compacted, nutrient depleted, or nearly written off. At number 11, buckwheat, the lightning pioneer. Buckwheat is one of the fastest land repair plants on this entire list. In parts of Asia and Eastern Europe, it was long valued as both food and field ally because it grows quickly, shades out competition, and performs surprisingly well in poor soils. Buckwheat is especially famous for helping mobilize phosphorus, one of the most important and often poorly available nutrients in damaged ground. Through root interactions and biochemical processes, it helps access forms of phosphorus that may otherwise remain locked away. It also produces rapid biomass, attracts pollinators when flowering, and protects exposed soil from direct assault by sun and rain. In a world obsessed with maximum yield per acre, buckwheat often gets underestimated because it looks temporary. But that is its genius. It is a first responder. When a landscape needs immediate cover, quick biological stimulation, and a bridge toward deeper restoration, buckwheat rushes in like it has been waiting for the call. At number 12, Daikon Radish, the living drill. This is the one I warned you about at the beginning, and for good reason. Daikon Radish is one of the most visually dramatic examples of what a plant can do for dead soil. Traditional Asian agriculture valued daikon as both food and field helper, but modern regenerative growers have embraced it for something even more spectacular. Its large taproot plunges downward, penetrating compacted layers and creating channels that help water infiltration, oxygen movement, and later root growth from following crops. When that root decomposes, it leaves behind pathways that can transform the physical structure of damaged ground. Daikon also scavenges nutrients from deeper layers and brings them closer to the surface, where future plants and microbes can benefit. In compacted American soils damaged by heavy equipment, overgrazing, or years of shallow-rooted monoculture, daikon is like biological excavation without steel. Modern society overlooked it because we forgot that roots can be tools, not just anchors. At number 13, alfalfa, the mineral elevator. Alfalfa has been respected for thousands of years, from Persian horse culture to Mediterranean farming traditions, and with good reason. This plant is legendary. Its deep roots reach far into the soil profile, accessing minerals and water well below the reach of many annual crops. As a legume, it also fixes nitrogen, making it a double gift to depleted land. Alfalfa contributes substantial biomass, supports microbial communities, improves aggregation, and helps rebuild structure over time. Some growers also value its relationship with calcium cycling and its ability to bring hidden fertility upward through deep-rooted mining. Dead soil is often not empty. It is disconnected. Nutrients may be present but unavailable. Biology may exist but be suppressed. Alfalfa helps reconnect layers. It was overlooked by modern convenience culture because it demands management, patience, and respect. It is not a one-season miracle. It is a long conversation with the land, and by the end of that conversation, the ground often remembers how to live again. At number 14, sunflower, the solar healer. Few plants combine beauty, biomass, rooting power, and ecological service the way sunflower does. Indigenous peoples and traditional farmers across the Americas valued sunflowers as food, oil, symbolism, and practical agriculture. But beyond the obvious, sunflowers are powerful soil workers. Their roots help open the ground, their tall biomass contributes organic matter, and their flowers pull in pollinators and beneficial insects that support broader ecosystem recovery. Some sunflower species and systems have also drawn attention for phytoremediation, the ability of plants to help absorb or stabilize certain contaminants in damaged soils. That does not make them magic, but it does make them important where land has been stressed or polluted. Modern culture often treats sunflowers as decorative or sentimental, but they are far more than that. They are biological engines, turning sunlight into restoration material, while reminding us that healing land can still look magnificent. At number 15, clover, the green blanket of mercy. Clover has been a beloved component of meadows, pastures, and rotations for centuries, especially in Europe and North America before lawn culture and herbicide obsession turned it into an enemy. Think about how backwards that is. One of the most soil-friendly plants in the landscape got pushed out because people wanted sterile, uniform grass. Clover is a legume, which means nitrogen fixation is part of its gift, but it also provides dense ground cover, reduces erosion, moderates soil temperature, supports pollinators, and keeps living roots feeding the underground ecosystem. White clover, red clover, and other species each bring slightly different strengths, but the overall message is the same. Clover protects the skin of the earth. In dead or declining soils, that protective blanket can mean the difference between further collapse and gradual revival. Society overlooked clover because modern aesthetics and industrial landscaping disconnected beauty from function. The land paid the price. At number 16, lupine, the wild rebuilder. Lupine has a kind of ancient dignity to it. Native species have long been part of ecosystems across North America, while other lupines have been valued in traditional agriculture and rough land improvement. As legumes, lupines can fix nitrogen, but they are especially important in challenging soils where fertility is low and recovery needs pioneers willing to work in difficult conditions. Their roots support microbial relationships, they contribute organic residues, and they help bring biological activity into ground that has lost complexity. Some lupines are especially effective in sandy or nutrient-poor soils, making them useful where other species might fail. Modern society overlooked lupine partly because wild plants often receive less respect than commercial crops. But restoration rarely begins with pampered plants. It begins with tough ones, species willing to move into emptiness and start rebuilding the living web. At number 17, mustard greens, the sharp defenders. The ancient world understood pungent plants. They were used in medicine, food, and land management because people observed their cleansing, stimulating, and protective qualities long before laboratories named the compounds involved. Mustard greens and related brassicas contain glucosinolates, compounds that break down into biologically active substances that can influence pests and soil dynamics. In soil rebuilding systems, mustard species are often used for biomass, nutrient capture, weed suppression, and biofumigant potential. They help cover the ground, keep nutrients cycling, and bring a kind of aggressive energy to tired places. Dead soil often needs a jolt, and mustard can provide one. Modern society forgot the land-healing role of these plants because we reduced them to salad ingredients or side dishes. But under the surface, mustard is not polite. It is strategic. It enters damaged ground and starts changing the rules. At number 18, comfrey, the forgotten accumulator. If there were ever a plant that old herbalists and practical homesteaders understood better than modern mainstream culture, it would be comfrey. For generations, comfrey was valued as a healing herb and as a garden ally because people noticed how vigorously it grew and how rich its leaves were. Comfrey has deep roots that help access nutrients from lower soil layers, and its massive leafy growth can be chopped and returned to the surface as mulch, feeding the ground with organic matter and recycled minerals. It is especially valued in regenerative gardening because it functions almost like an on-site nutrient pump. Instead of importing fertility endlessly, comfrey helps generate and cycle it. Modern society overlooked comfrey because it does not fit neatly into industrial agriculture. It is too local, too practical, too rooted in the old wisdom of watching what plants actually do. But when land is tired, comfrey behaves like a generous old healer who still remembers the craft. At number 19, chicory, the deep blue miner. Chicory has been appreciated since ancient Egypt and Rome for food, medicine, and resilience, but its soil-restoring talent deserves far more attention. Chicory develops a strong taproot that penetrates deeply into the soil, helping fracture compacted layers and access moisture and minerals below the reach of shallow-rooted species. That makes it especially useful in mixed systems, pastures, and restoration blends, where deep penetration is needed. Its roots help improve structure, while its presence increases plant diversity, which is absolutely critical in rebuilding biological health. Monocultures exhaust the earth because they repeat the same conversation over and over. Dead soil needs a choir, not a solo. Chicory adds a powerful voice to that choir. It was overlooked because it lives between categories. It is not just a crop, not just a weed, not just an herb. And anything that refuses to fit simple labels often gets ignored by systems that profit from simplification. At number 20, Hairy Vetch, the ultimate living resurrection blanket. This is the culmination of everything we have been building toward. Hairy Vetch is one of the most celebrated cover crops for a reason. It grows aggressively, covers the ground thoroughly, fixes significant nitrogen, protects against erosion, suppresses weeds, feeds microbes, and leaves behind substantial biomass that can nourish future crops and rebuild organic matter. In traditional mixed agriculture, the principle behind plants like Hairy Vetch was always understood, even if the exact species varied by region. The land must not be left naked. The land must be fed while it is feeding you. Hairy Vetch embodies that truth with extraordinary force. On damaged American soils, especially where fertility is low and living cover has been absent, Hairy Vetch can act like a restorative cloak, wrapping the earth in protection while the underground world begins rebuilding itself. Modern agriculture often forgot this because bare fields looked tidy and synthetic inputs seemed easier than biological complexity. But easy is not the same as wise. Hairy Vetch is wise. And when you step back and look at this entire list, the deeper message becomes impossible to ignore. Lentils, vetiver grass, mung beans, acacia, purslane, soybeans, marigold, barley, green peas, canola, buckwheat, Daikon radish, alfalfa, sunflower, mustard greens, comfrey, chicory, and hairy vetch are not just plants. They are proof that nature has been offering us a blueprint for restoration the entire time. While modern systems often treated soil as dead matter to be manipulated, these plants remind us that the earth heals through relationships, through roots, through microbes, through cover, through diversity, through patience, through species that know how to give back instead of just take. The tragedy is not that dead soil exists, land can recover. The tragedy is that so many people were taught to ignore the very plants that know how to bring it back. But that story can change. It is changing right now across farms, gardens, homesteads, and restoration projects all over America. The soil is not asking for more punishment. It is asking for partnership. So now I want to ask you, which of these 20 plants surprised you the most? And which one would you try first on damaged ground? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more powerful countdowns about plants, foods, and the forgotten natural strategies that can change health and land from the ground up, subscribe to the channel and stay with us, because the next list might completely change the way you see the world beneath your feet.